The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Plain white envelope. No return address. Just his name printed in clean black letters, Ethan Cole, and 3 words beneath the event details that made his jaw tighten. "We miss you." He stood in his office on the 42nd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows behind him. The city sprawling silver and gold in every direction. $12 billion in assets. 43 countries. A company that had changed the way the world communicated. And a 3-word lie on a piece of paper that still knew exactly how to find him. Ethan set the envelope on his desk. Slowly. Carefully. The way you set down something that might detonate. 15 years ago. A boy walked out of Crestwood High covered in milkshake and whipped cream, and the sound of an entire gymnasium laughing. He didn't run. He didn't cry. He just stood there. Soaking wet. While the cameras flashed and the music played and every single person he had ever called a classmate looked at him like he was the punchline of a joke they'd been building for years. That boy disappeared the next morning. His family moved away within 2 weeks. No goodbye. No explanation. Just gone. Until now. Because Ethan Cole had decided something. Somewhere between his 3rd board meeting and his 4th sleepless night. He was done running. He picked up the invitation. Read it one more time. Then he did something no one in that town could have predicted. He said yes. The bar on Callaway Street looked exactly the way Ethan remembered it. Low lights. Old wood. The kind of place that smelled like strong coffee and quiet secrets. Where people came not to be seen but to breathe for a while, without anyone asking questions. He walked in just after 8. Dark jacket. Simple jeans. A face that gave nothing away. No assistant. No security. No one who knew his name or his net worth or the fact that his photo had been on the cover of Forbes 3 times in the last 5 years. Just a man. Just a drink. Just one night of being nobody. He chose the corner seat back to the wall. Eyes on the door. Old habit. He ordered whiskey. Neat. And let the silence settle around him like something familiar. He had been in town for exactly 4 hours. In those 4 hours, he had driven past the old school twice without stopping. He had sat in a rental car outside his childhood home for 11 minutes before driving away. He had eaten nothing, said nothing to anyone, and spent most of the time staring at roads that looked smaller than he remembered. Everything looked smaller, except the weight he had carried here. That felt exactly the same size. He was halfway through his drink when it happened. The front door automatic. Motion sensor. The kind that should open without any human involvement whatsoever, became the site of what could only be described as a full personal conflict. The woman outside stepped forward. The door did not open. She stepped back, waved her hand at the sensor. Nothing. She leaned closer, almost pressing her forehead to the glass. Studying it like a doctor examining a patient, she deeply distrusted. Ethan watched. She jumped once. Twice in front of the sensor. The door opened. She stepped forward in triumph. The door closed on her shoulder. She let out a sound somewhere between a gasp and a complaint. Stuck halfway in and halfway out. The door opening and closing on her like it had made a decision and was committed to it. A few people glanced over. Ethan didn't look away. She finally broke free. Stumbled inside. Grabbed the counter with both hands. Hair across her face. Bag sliding off her elbow. Every piece of dignity she'd walked in with now somewhere on the floor behind her. She straightened up, adjusted her jacket, turned back to face the door with the expression of someone who had lost this argument before and was already planning the next round. "We have talked about this," she told the door, pointing one finger at it. "Evoke. You open. That is the agreement. I have done nothing to deserve this." The door stood closed. Innocent. Unbothered. "Fine," she said. "You win. Again. But tomorrow I am coming back. And I will be ready." She turned toward the bar and stopped. Because Ethan was looking at her, she blinked again, walked to the counter with the careful steps of someone trying very hard to appear like a person who had not just lost a fight with an automatic door. She sat on the stool beside him, ordered a drink, looked straight ahead, did not look at him, did not look. He was looking at her, and then he smiled. Her heart did something complicated, but then she saw it. Right there, between his two front teeth, a small, perfect, unmistakable piece of parsley, green, bright, completely at home. Her brain stopped. Okay. This is not fair. Nobody should look like that in a place like this. But the parsley. Do I say something? Do I not say something? If I say something, he will be embarrassed. If I don't say something, he will keep smiling, and the parsley will just live there forever. That is not acceptable. But the smile, even with the parsley, it is honestly a very good smile. Maybe the parsley is. Do you always do that? She froze. He was watching her with one eyebrow raised. Comme, patient, quietly amused. Do what? Talk to yourself, he said. You were murmuring. Something about parsley. The blood left her face entirely. I said that out loud, every word. She wanted the floor to open. She wanted to go back in time, not even far. Just 45 seconds would be enough and make different choices. Better choices. Any choices that did not end with a stranger informing her that she had narrated her own internal crisis at full volume. There is, she managed, something in your tooth. A pause. Then he ran his tongue across his teeth. Found it. His expression shifted, that particular shade of red that belongs entirely to the moment a person realizes a stranger has been watching them smile with food in their teeth for an unknown amount of time. How long, he asked. Since you smiled. He covered his face with one hand. She covered hers with her glass. For 3 full seconds. Neither of them said anything. Then he laughed. Low. Quiet. The kind of laugh that arrives before a person can stop it. And she laughed, too. I'm Maya, she said. When the laughter settled, Ethan, you're not from here. It wasn't a question. He looked at her for a moment, careful. Measuring. What makes you say that? You ordered whiskey neat in a town where everyone drinks beer and pretends it's a personality. She tilted her head. And you look at this place like it owes you something. He was quiet. Just long enough for her to wonder if she'd said too much. Maybe it does, he said finally. She didn't push. Something in his voice told her the answer was longer than the night had room for, so she raised her glass instead. To automatic doors, she said, and teeth that betray us at the worst possible moment. One corner of his mouth lifted. I'll take that. Their glasses touched small, quiet, almost private, and that was the moment Derek Shaw walked through the door. No stumbling, no struggle. The sensor opened perfectly for him. Of course it did, because even inanimate objects seemed to understand which way that man's world was organized. He moved through the bar the way he always had, like he owned it. Like he owned everything in it. Like the air itself had been arranged for his comfort. His eyes landed on Ethan, and something behind them flickered. Hey, Derek pointed. Slow and easy. You look familiar. Do I know you from somewhere? Ethan picked up his glass, took one calm sip, set it down. I don't think so, he said, and smiled this time, with nothing in his teeth at all. The cafe on Birchwood Lane opened at 7. Maya was always there by 6:45. Not because she was particularly disciplined, more because her apartment was small. Her thoughts were loud, and coffee solved approximately 40% of both problems. She was wiping down the counter when the bell above the door rang, and the morning rush began. Familiar faces, familiar orders, familiar conversations about weather and neighbors and whose car had been parked in the wrong spot again. Maya moved through it all on autopilot, because her mind was still in that bar, still sitting on that stool, still hearing that laugh low and quiet, the kind that arrived before a person could decide whether to allow it, still thinking about the way he had looked at this town, like it owed him something. She had tried searching his name that morning. Ethan Cole. Simple enough. Common enough. She had expected something, a social media profile, a LinkedIn page, a photo, anything. Nothing. No accounts. No images. No digital footprint of any kind. As if the man had stepped fully formed out of thin air and walked into a bar on Callaway Street just to ruin her ability to concentrate, she set her phone face down on the counter. Fine. Mystery man stays mysterious. That is fine. She picked up her cloth and moved to the tables near the window. That was when she heard it. Two women, both somewhere in their 60s. Both with the particular energy of people who treated local gossip as a civic duty, were settled into the corner booth with their tea, speaking in the low voices people use when they want to be overheard. Did you see the posters Derek put up? For the reunion, I saw them. All over Main Street. You would think he was organizing something important. He invited that boy. Apparently. A pause. Maya slowed her wiping. Which boy? The one from graduation. You remember the one they humiliated? The whole terrible business with the milkshake. Maya's cloth stopped moving entirely. Oh. Goodness. What was his name? Ethan something? Ethan Cole. I think. Poor chilled. That video went everywhere. I hope he doesn't go. No one should have to walk back into that. Their voices dropped lower. Maya straightened up and walked back to the counter. Legs moving on their own. The name echoing in a way she couldn't quiet. Ethan Cole. She found Frank at the grill during his break, 63 years old. Gray at the temples. A man who had worked in this cafe longer than Maya had been alive and remembered everything this town had ever tried to forget. Frank, she said carefully. Do you know anything about a graduation party that went wrong 15 years ago? He didn't answer right away. Just turned his coffee cup slowly in both hands. The milkshake one. Yes. Frank was quiet for a long moment. Then he set the cup down. There was a boy. He said, Ethan Cole. Quiet kid. Kept to himself. He had lost a lot of weight that year, but he was still figuring himself out. You know how it is at that age. You change on the outside before you catch up on the inside. Maya nodded. Not trusting herself to speak, Derek Shaw and his group told the boy a girl wanted to meet him at the graduation party, that she would be waiting for him in the middle of the gym. Frank's jaw tightened. So he went. Dressed up. Probably the most hopeful he had ever let himself be. What did they do? Put him right in the center of the room. Lights on him. Music. The whole school watching. And then they poured milkshake over his head. Whipped cream. Confetti. Old photos of him up on the big screen. He stopped. While everyone laughed, Maya felt her throat close. He just stood there. Frank said quietly. Didn't run. Didn't cry. Just stood there. Like he had already decided there was no point in reacting anymore. Like he had already been through enough that this was just one more thing. The cafe noise continued around them. Orders. Laughter. The sound of cups on saucers. The ordinary world. Completely unbothered. His family moved away 2 weeks later. Frank said, nobody ever saw the boy again. Maya looked at the counter. At nothing. At everything. Was Derek ever punished? Frank let out a short, humorless sound. His father made a donation to the school. Called it teenage fun. That was the end of it. He picked up his coffee cup again. And then, almost as an afterthought, he looked at her. The worst part, Frank said, wasn't the milkshake. Maya. She looked up. The worst part was that not one person in that gymnasium stood up for him. His voice was low and certain. Not one. 300 people in that room, and not a single one of them took one step forward. The words landed somewhere deep. Maya walked back to the counter slowly. She thought about last night. About a man who ordered whiskey and sat with his back to the wall. About the way he had looked at the school from across the street, not with nostalgia, with the particular stillness of someone who had trained themselves not to feel something that still hurt. She thought about what she had said. "You look at this place like it owes you something." And what he had answered, "Maybe it does." She picked up her phone, typed the name one more time. Ethan Cole. Still nothing. She set the phone down and looked at the window. At the street. At the reunion poster Derek had taped to the lamppost outside. Bright and cheerful and completely unbothered by what it represented. 15-year reunion. The night you'll never forget. Maya stared at those words for a long time. Then she pulled out her notepad, wrote down one table's order, delivered 2 coffees, dropped a spoon, apologized to a chair she walked into, and spent the rest of her shift thinking about a boy who had stood in the middle of a gymnasium and decided there was no point in reacting anymore, and about the man he had become, and about the fact that Derek Shaw had just invited him back. He came in at 10:30. Maya was restocking the sugar jars behind the counter when she heard the bell. She looked up out of habit and then immediately looked back down. Because looking up had been a mistake. Because it was him, and she needed approximately 3 to 5 business days to prepare for that. Okay. You are a professional. You serve people every day. He is just another customer who happens to have walked through your door. Which, speaking of doors, he did without any incident whatsoever. The door opened perfectly for him. Of course it did. Because the universe has a very clear sense of humor, and you are always the punchline. You can do this. Just walk over. Take the order. Do not say anything about parsley. She straightened her apron, pulled her hair back, walked to his table with everything she had. "Hi." Ethan looked up, recognized her, and smiled, that same smile, unhurried, like he had nowhere else to be, and wasn't particularly sorry about it. "Hi. You came back. You work here." "I do. Assistant manager. Which means I do everything the actual manager doesn't want to do, and earn just enough more to feel responsible for it." He let out a quiet laugh. "Black coffee. Just that. Just that." She wrote it down. Returned to the counter. Prepared the cup with hands that were completely steady and professional, and not trembling even slightly. She lifted the tray. Walked back. 4 steps from his table. The tray tilted. Not much. Just enough. The cup slid, rolled to the edge, dropped, and landed under his chair, as if it had somewhere specific to be. Maya stood holding the empty tray. "You had one job," she said to it. "One." Ethan leaned down, picked up the cup, handed it back. His eyes were bright with the kind of amusement that was trying very hard to be respectful about itself. "It happens. Not to other people," Maya said, taking the cup. "Specifically to me, the universe and I have a long and complicated history." "Who's winning?" She looked at the empty tray, at the cup, at the small coffee stain on the floor that she was going to have to clean up. "Not me." He laughed again, real this time, warm and unguarded, the kind that arrives before a person decides to allow it. Maya went completely still for half a second, just listening to it, because it did something odd in her chest, like a window opening in a room that had been closed too long. "You're doing it again," Ethan said, doing what thinking out loud. "Maya Stefanid, please tell me I didn't say anything about windows." He tilted his head. "You said my laugh did something odd in your chest." She turned and walked back to the counter at a pace that was not quite running but was making very strong suggestions in that direction. She made a second coffee, delivered it without incident, spent the next hour and a half pretending to be extremely busy, But every time she glanced at the corner, he was still there. Not on his phone. Not working. Just looking out the window at the street. At the town. At something only he could see. A stillness about him that wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that came from practice. From years of learning how to be somewhere without letting it touch you. She was thinking about Frank's words. Not one person stood up for him when the shouting started. This is not what I ordered. A man at table 4 was on his feet, pointing at his plate. Broad shoulders. Red face. The particular energy of someone who had decided today was the day he would make someone else feel small. Maya turned. Sir. I wrote down exactly, I said. No onions. There are onions. I can replace it right away. I don't want it replaced. I want it done correctly the first time. Is that so difficult? He stepped toward her, closing the space between them in a way that was meant to feel like pressure. Get me your manager. I am the manager on duty, the real one. The cafe had gone quiet. Maya felt the heat rise in her face, not from embarrassment. From anger, she wasn't allowed to say out loud. Then Ethan stood up. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't cross the room quickly. Just stood. Unhurried. All 6 feet 2 inches of him. Completely still. Looking at the man at table 4 with an expression that was entirely calm and somehow said everything that needed saying. The customer looked up, and stopped. Is there a problem? Ethan said. Quietly. Pleasantly. Like someone asking about the weather. The man looked at Ethan. Looked at Maya. Looked at the door. No. He muttered. No problem. He put money on the table and left. The cafe exhaled. Maya stood there for a moment, just breathing. Then she looked at Ethan, who had already sat back down and picked up his coffee, as if nothing of any particular interest had occurred. You didn't even say anything, she said. I didn't need to. That is the most unsettling thing I have ever found. Impressive. He said nothing, just looked out the window again. And she saw it, that shift in his face. The one she had noticed last night. The smile fading. The jaw tightening. The eyes settling on something distant and heavy. Something that had nothing to do with the street outside. She finished her shift at 4. She was refilling the napkin holders near the window when she finally asked, Can I ask you something? You can... She kept her eyes on the napkins. Why did you really come back? A long pause. The kind that meant the answer existed but wasn't sure yet if it trusted the room. Unfinished business, he said. What kind? The kind you spend 15 years pretending isn't there. She looked up then. He was looking at her steadily, carefully. The way people look when they're deciding how much of themselves to hand over. I grew up here, he said. And I left because someone decided my pain was their entertainment. The words were simple. No drama. No performance. Just the flat, honest shape of something that had been carried a long time. Maya set down the napkins. She crossed to his table, pulled out the chair across from him, and sat down. He looked at her, slightly surprised. She didn't say anything about what Frank had told her. Didn't say she already knew the outline of his story. Already knew the name of the boy in the gymnasium. On the sound the milkshake had made, and the fact that not one person had moved. She just sat there, and after a moment, without a word, she reached across the table and held his hand. His fingers were cold, tense. The hand of someone who had been bracing for a long time, but after a few seconds slowly, like something learning it was allowed to, he relaxed. They sat like that in the quiet of the afternoon, the cafe emptying around them, the light coming low and golden through the windows, until Maya's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at the screen without thinking. A notification. Derek Shaw's event page. A new update. A photo, the reunion hall half decorated. Balloons and banners and a large dark screen waiting at the back of the stage. In the corner of the photo, almost out of frame, barely visible, A face, young, heavier, eyes down, standing in the middle of a gymnasium while everything around him was chaos. Maya's breath stopped. She looked at the photo, looked at Ethan, looked at the photo again. He was already watching her, and he knew exactly what she had just seen. "It's you," she said softly. "In the photo, that's you." Ethan didn't deny it, didn't look away, just sat there, completely still, more exposed than she had seen him, more exposed, she suspected, than he had allowed himself to be in a very long time. "It is," he said quietly. Maya felt the pieces settle into place. Every moment since the bar, every careful answer, every time he had looked at this town like it owed him something. "And Derek," she said. "He's the one who," yes, one word, but the weight behind it was enormous. Maya tightened her hold on his hand. "You're going to face him." It wasn't a question. Ethan looked at her, and for the first time, beneath everything, he usually kept composed and controlled and unreachable. She saw something else entirely. Not anger, not bitterness, just a person who was tired, deeply, honestly tired of carrying something that had never been his to carry in the first place. "I'm going," he said. "I need to." Maya looked at their hands on the table, at the reunion photo still glowing on her phone screen, at the man across from her who had walked back into the place that had broken him and was still somehow, quietly, stubbornly standing. "Then you're not going alone," she said. He started to speak. "Don't," she said simply. "I'm going. That's it." Ethan looked at her for a long moment, and then just barely he smiled. Outside, the wind moved through the trees on Birchwood Lane, and the reunion poster on the lamppost shifted and settled, bright and cheerful, and completely unaware of what was coming for it. The Crestwood Community Hall had never looked so beautiful. String lights across the ceiling, round tables with white linen, the smell of catered food and expensive cologne, and 15 years of people pretending they had turned out exactly as planned. Maya arrived 20 minutes early, not because she wanted to, because she needed to know the layout. The exits, where Derek had positioned Ryan and Joel, where the screen controls were. She had spent the last hour trying to reach Ethan, calls going to voicemail, messages sitting undelivered, the little notification that said "not" sent like a door closing quietly in her face. She found a spot near the kitchen corridor, half behind a pillar, and watched. The hall filled quickly, former classmates in their best clothes, laughing too loudly, complimenting each other too enthusiastically. The particular performance of people who needed tonight to mean something. Derek was already on stage. Blazer that caught the light wrong, hair that hadn't moved since 1999, a microphone in his hand, and the expression of a man who had been rehearsing this moment in his bathroom mirror for weeks. Ryan stood to the left of the stage, holding a remote control like it was something sacred. Joel stood to his right, nodding at everything and nothing. The screen at the back of the stage was dark, but Maya knew what was loaded on it. She had heard them talking when she arrived, voices carrying through the kitchen door she wasn't supposed to be standing beside. Play the video at 7:30. Let everyone see it first. Then Derek takes the mic and does the speech. Her stomach had turned to ice. She checked her phone again. Nothing from Ethan. Derek tapped the microphone. "Welcome, everyone, to the Crestwood 15-year reunion." Applause. A few cheers. A woman near the front laughed at something that hadn't been said yet, which was its own kind of social performance. "Tonight we celebrate the people we were," Derek continued, "and the memories that made us." He paused, theatrical. "Practiced. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge a very special guest." His eyes moved to the main door. Waiting, Maya followed his gaze. The doors were closed. The room was full. No sign of the lights flickered. Once, twice, the music cut out, A low murmur moved through the hall, the collective sound of 200 people suddenly uncertain. Then the main doors opened, and Ethan Cole walked in. Not the man in the simple jacket from the bar. Not the quiet figure sitting alone with whiskey and old memories. This was someone else entirely. The suit was dark and perfectly fitted. The kind that came from a tailor who understood that clothing was its own kind of language. His posture was straight, his chin level, his expression completely composed. On his wrist, a watch that caught the light once and didn't need to again. He walked into that room, the way people walk into rooms they own. Because he did. Maya realized he actually did. The building, the block, 3 more within a mile radius. She had read that in the article she found. She had thought about it ever since. The hall went silent. Not gradually, all at once, like someone had reached into the room and turned off the sound. Derek's smile disappeared. Maya watched it happen, the color leaving his face, the microphone dropping slightly in his hand. The moment a man realizes the script he memorized is suddenly the wrong one. "No," Derek said, under his breath. "No." That's not. Ethan walked through the room. Past former classmates who stared with open mouths. Past teachers who leaned toward each other and whispered. Past a woman who dropped her glass and didn't notice. He stopped in the center of the hall, turned to face the stage, and looked at Derek Shaw for the first time in 15 years. The silence was enormous. "Derek," Ethan said. One word. Calm. Unhurried. But it moved through the room like weather. Derek opened his mouth. Closed it. Tried again. "Ethan." What a surprise. "We were just about to. I know what you were about to do." Ethan's eyes moved to the dark screen at the back of the stage. Stayed there for one long moment. The video is already loaded. "Isn't it?" A sound moved through the crowd. Half gasp. Half murmur. Derek forced a laugh. "I don't know what you're talking about. This is a reunion. We're here to celebrate. You invited me here to humiliate me." Ethan's voice didn't rise, didn't harden. It stayed exactly the same, which somehow made it worse. The same way you did 15 years ago. Different room. Same idea. "Come on." I know what it was. Ethan walked toward the stage. Slowly. Every step deliberate. The crowd parted without being asked. He reached the screen controls. Looked at Ryan, who took one step back, and then another, and then handed over the remote, without being asked at all. Ethan looked at the remote in his hand. Then he let it fall. The plastic cracked against the floor. Someone flinched. He walked to the wall, found the power outlet, pulled the plug. The screen went dark and stayed that way. He turned back to face the room, all of it. Not just Derek. All 200 people, who were standing very still and saying nothing. 15 years ago, he said. "I stood in a room like this one while someone poured milkshake over my head and called it a joke, while photos of me played on a screen, while every person in that gym either laughed or stayed quiet, which at 17 years old feels like the same thing. No one moved. I left this town the next morning. I told myself I was moving forward. A pause. What I was actually doing was running, and I ran for a long time." He looked at Derek. "You were the name I heard in my head every time someone doubted me. Every time I walked into a room and felt that old familiar weight, the one that tells you you don't belong. You were never supposed to be here. You are still just the boy they laughed at." Derek said nothing. His mouth was open, but nothing was coming out. "And tonight," Ethan continued, "standing here looking at you, I understand something I couldn't see before." He took one step forward. "I changed. Derek. Genuinely. Completely. From the ground up. And you planned a reunion prank. You are standing on a stage in your hometown with a remote control and a 15-year-old video, waiting for a boy who doesn't exist anymore." The room was absolutely silent. That boy is gone. Ethan said, I left him behind a long time ago. I just needed to come back and make sure you knew that. He turned to leave. Behind him, Ryan and Joel made their move toward the kitchen. The quiet shuffle of two men who had suddenly remembered somewhere else they needed to be. Ryan hit the kitchen door hard. It didn't move. He hit it again. Nothing. Joel tried pulling. Still nothing. It's stuck. Ryan, he said. Doors don't just get stuck, this one did. A voice from inside the kitchen. Dry and unbothered, it's a sliding door. Both men froze. It slides. The voice repeated, to the side. Ryan and Joel looked at the door. At the track on the floor. Back at the door. They slid it sideways. It opened smoothly and silently, and both of them stumbled through it in a tangle of elbows and muttered words, disappearing into the kitchen with the sound of something metallic falling over. The room burst into laughter, real laughter, the kind that breaks tension like glass. Ethan paused at the main door, turned, and for the first time that entire evening, he smiled. Then his eyes found Maya, still beside the pillar, still holding her phone against her chest, still exactly where she had been standing when the doors opened and everything changed. Their eyes met across the room, and something passed between them wordless. Complete. The kind of thing that doesn't need translation. Ethan gave one small nod. Then he walked out. The door closed behind him, and the room, slowly, began to breathe again. The parking lot was quiet. Most of the light came from the hall windows, warm and amber, spilling out across the asphalt in long, uneven patches. Somewhere inside, conversations had resumed the particular sound of a room full of people trying to process something they hadn't expected and weren't sure yet how to talk about. Out here, there was just the wind and the distant sound of the town settling into night, and Ethan, leaning against a black car at the far end of the lot, head down, hands in his pockets. He hadn't left. Maya slowed when she saw him. Then she kept walking. He heard her footsteps and looked up. Neither of them spoke for a moment, just stood there in the quiet. The space between them, filled with everything that had happened in the last 2 hours, and everything that had been building long before that. Maya stopped a few feet away. You didn't leave, she said. No. I've been calling you. I know. I turned my phone off before I went in. He looked at her steadily. I didn't want anything to change my mind. Were you worried it would? A long pause. I was worried you would tell me not to go, he said, and that I would listen. Maya looked at him at the tiredness in his face, the kind that came not from one hard night but from years of carrying something heavy and finally setting it down. How do you feel? She asked. He thought about it. Actually thought. The way people do when they're checking something real, rather than reaching for the polite answer. Like I can breathe, he said, which is strange because I didn't realize I had stopped. She nodded slowly. The wind moved through the trees at the edge of the lot, and somewhere down the street, a car passed, headlights sweeping briefly across the asphalt. Ethan, Maya said, I owe you an apology. He frowned. You don't. I do. She crossed her arms. Not defensively, just holding herself steady. When I found out about the company, about the money, I made it about me, about feeling like you hadn't trusted me, and I wasn't wrong. Exactly. But I wasn't entirely fair either. He started to speak. She kept going. You came back to a town that broke you, to face a person who hurt you in front of everyone, carrying 15 years of something most people would never recover from. She met his eyes, and I got upset about a Forbes article. Ethan was quiet for a moment. You weren't wrong to be upset, he said finally. I should have told you. I kept waiting for the right moment, and the right moment kept not arriving, and eventually I just let it go too long. Why? She asked it simply, without accusation. He looked at the ground, at his shoes, at the space between them, because every time people find out, he said, the conversation changes. The way they look at me changes. They start calculating, what does he have? What does he owe me? What can I get? What does this mean for them? He exhaled slowly. And you were the first person in a very long time who just talked to me. Like a person. Like someone who was mildly irritating but also occasionally interesting. Mildly irritating, Maya repeated. In a good way. That is not how that phrase works. It is how I meant it. She looked at him for a long moment. And then, despite everything, despite the weight of the evening and the tightness still in her chest, and the reunion noise drifting out from the hall behind her, she laughed. Small, quiet, but real. And he did too. The laughter faded slowly, the way good laughter does, leaving something lighter in its place. Tell me something, Maya said. Something true. Something that isn't in any article. Ethan looked at the sky for a moment, at the stars appearing one by one above the parking lot. The first company I started, he said, failed completely. I lost everything. I was 24 years old and I was sleeping on my cousin's couch and eating cereal for dinner because it was the cheapest thing at the store. He paused. I almost quit. I sat on that couch for 3 days and I thought maybe they were right. Maybe this is all I am. Maya said nothing, just listened. And then I thought about that gymnasium. Ethan continued, about standing there, soaking wet, while the whole school laughed. And I thought I survived that. I was 17, and I had nothing and no one, and I survived that. His voice was quiet but steady, so I got off the couch. Started again. And the second company worked. The words settled between them like something important. You built it out of spite, Maya said softly. I built it out of survival. He looked at her. Spite came later, but survival got me through the door. Maya was quiet for a moment, turning that over. Can I tell you something true, she said. Something not in any article either. He nodded. I stayed in this town on purpose. She said, everyone I went to school with left bigger cities, better opportunities, all of that, and people always ask me why I'm still here, why I'm still working in a cafe, why I haven't. She stopped, restarted. My mother got sick 6 years ago. I came back to help and I never left. And then she got better, and I told myself I would go. I would finally go. But by then I had... She looked at the cafe across the square. Its lights off now. Closed for the night. The door that had tormented her for 2 years, gleaming faintly in the dark. I had built something, she said. Small. Imperfect. Mine. And I didn't want to let it go just because it didn't look impressive from the outside. Ethan looked at her with an expression she hadn't seen before. Not sympathy. Something closer to recognition. It doesn't need to look impressive from the outside. He said, I know that now. She smiled. Small and a little tired. It took me a while. They stood in silence for a moment. The good kind. The kind that didn't need filling. Then Maya looked at him carefully. Ethan. You're smiling. I am. She leaned forward slightly, with the expression of a person performing a very serious professional inspection. He went still immediately. What is it? There's something. She squinted. Right there. On your no. I think it's Maya. Parsley. He ran his tongue across his teeth instantly. Fully committed. Completely panicked. She pressed her lips together. Gone, he asked. She looked at him for a long, serious moment. There was never anything there, she said. Ethan stared at her. I just needed to know, she said. If you were still the same person who gets nervous about food in his teeth, that is, you are, she said. For the record, he closed his eyes briefly. You are a genuinely terrible person. I know. I like that. I know that too. The smile on his face was different now. Looser. More real. The kind that didn't have anything to prove. He pushed off the car and stood straight. And for a moment just looked at her, at this woman who had argued with doors and traffic lights and GPS systems and had still shown up. Had still been standing in the shadows of that hall, holding her phone like a lifeline. Had still walked out into this parking lot and said, "I owe you an apology," like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Maya," he said. "Ethan, I'd like to start over." He extended his hand. Properly. No secrets. No missing context. No parsley. She looked at his hand, at his face, at the man standing in front of her who had just walked back through the hardest door of his life and come out the other side still standing. Still himself. Still somehow able to smile about it. She placed her hand in his hand. "Fresh start," she said. His fingers closed around hers. Warm. Certain. Fresh start. Across the square, the cafe sat quiet in the dark. Its troublesome automatic door still, and silver, and for once completely peaceful. And neither of them noticed. Because for the first time all evening, they weren't looking at anything except each other. 3 days later, the cafe on Birchwood Lane opened at 7. Maya was there at 6:45, same as always. Except this morning, someone was already waiting outside. Dark jacket. Steady posture. 2 cups of coffee from the place across the square. Because he had learned quickly, thoroughly, that you do not arrive at Maya Brooks' cafe empty-handed and expect forgiveness. She stopped on the sidewalk when she saw him. "You're early," she said. "You're always earlier. That is technically not a defense." "I brought coffee." "That is technically a defense." She took the cup. Their fingers touched for a moment, longer than necessary. Neither of them moved away. They stood in front of the cafe door. The door that had humiliated her, trapped her, defeated her on 17 separate occasions across 2 years of sincere and dedicated effort. "Ready?" Ethan asked. Maya looked at the door, took a slow breath. "Listen," she said quietly. "I just need one. Just give me one." She stepped forward. The door opened smooth. Immediate. Perfect. Like it had been waiting to get this right. Maya froze. Then she turned to Ethan. Eyes wide. Coffee cup pressed to her chest. "Did you see that I saw? It opened. It did. No hesitation. No trapping. No, Maya. Yes, go inside before it changes its mind." She went. He followed. The door closed behind them, soft. Clean. Like a full stop at the end of a long and complicated sentence. Maya stood in the middle of her cafe and felt something settle in her chest. Quiet. Solid. Right. Ethan stood beside her. "You know," he said, "I think the universe is finally done testing you." She looked at him, at this man who had come back to the town that broke him and left it unable to touch him, who had walked into the hardest room of his life and walked back out still standing, who showed up at 6:45 with 2 cups of coffee and absolutely 0 parsley. "Or maybe," she said softly, "it just needed to make sure I was strong enough first." He smiled. She smiled. And somewhere in the back of the cafe, the coffee machine, for absolutely no reason at all, turned itself on. Some people come back to prove a point. Ethan Cole came back to let go. And somewhere between a stuck door, a piece of parsley, and a girl who never once let the universe win without an argument, he found the one thing he hadn't planned for: a reason to stay. If this story moved you, if you have ever felt invisible, overlooked, or left behind, this one was for you. Drop a comment right now and tell us what was your favorite moment: the parsley, the parking lot, the door that finally cooperated. If you made it all the way here, you are wonderful, and we are grateful. Hit like. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. And subscribe, because the next story is already waiting. And trust us, you do not want to miss it.